today for day 4, we are going to continue talking about application of area. This is a very technical lesson. We're going to be talking about flooring and carpeting and all that good stuff. So maybe this is oh yeah, I do this all the time. Or maybe it's Miss Lace, I've never thought about carpeting a house in my entire life. So, we're going to figure it out. Number 1 is probably the most similar to what we're going to see on a test or a quiz. We're talking about just painting some walls. So we're considering the 4 walls and ceiling of a bedroom. We want to know how much would it cost to paint the 4 walls without the windows and doors with 2 coats of paint if 1 gallon of paint covers 350 square feet and costs $76.49 per gallon. So basically, we're figuring out how many gallons of paint do we need to buy, and then how much is that going to cost us. So if I take a look at what I have here in these drawings, the first thing I see is how much would it cost to paint the 4 walls? Does it ever say anything about painting the ceiling in this particular problem? No. So I'm going to ignore that I have a ceiling here. I'm not painting it. Let's cross it out. Then I need to figure out how much is this going to cost, how much surface area am I covering on these walls? So I'm going to add each piece together. Some of them are going to be a little bit easier than others. What I like to do, and this is totally up to you, whatever you decide, I like to write this all out and then put it in my calculator all at the same time. So I would say this area is, let's start with this first wall with the door on it. Do we see that I have an 8 by 12 wall? And to figure out how much area is on there without the door, I'm going to subtract the 2.75 by 6.75 door. That's that first wall right there. Everybody cool with that? I'm going to do the same thing for the next few walls. So I have one wall here. That's an 8 by 10. That's nice and easy. Nothing fancy there. The next wall has 2 windows. An 8 by 12 wall again. I'm subtracting 2 3 by 4 windows. Are we good with that one? And then I have another 8 by 10 wall. If you prefer to find each one of these individually and add them together, totally fine by me. This is how I like to do it. So the total area that I'm painting ends up coming out to 309.4. Oops. Square feet. There's one piece of information in this problem that's going to be important before I figure out how many gallons of paint I need to buy. What do I need to know from this problem first? It's in there to trick you, but we got to read carefully. Dahlia?
2 coats of paint.
We are painting these walls over twice. So that means I need to cover 309.4 feet twice. So I'm going to take that 309.4 and multiply it by 2 coats to get 618.8 square feet that I'm covering. You need to do this step first. Do not find the number of gallons first. You need to figure out how many total area or how much total area you're covering first. Okay? You're going to get 2 different numbers if you try to do this with the gallons. Then from here, how do I figure out how many gallons I need? Each gallon covers 350 square feet. So I'm going to take that number and I'm just going to divide by 350 square feet. That tells me I'm going to need 1.768 gallons. Anyone ever buy paint? Can you buy 0.768 of a gallon of paint? So how many gallons of paint are we actually purchasing? 2 of them. Now we're almost done. Now I know that each gallon costs $76.49. I'm going to multiply that 2 gallons by $76.49 to end up with $152.98. That's a lot of work. Any questions on that, Dahlia?
So because you have to like round it to like 2, is that why you should have set it up as like a proportion with like the 350 and like the cost per gallon?
Can you set it up as a proportion? You could set it up as a proportion. Because you're not actually buying 1.78 gallons, that's why you shouldn't put it in a proportion, because then you're going to get a less number, a lower number. Okay. Everybody okay with that? Okay. That's kind of what the problems on the quiz are going to look like. Again, you got to make sure that you're doing this part first, this 2 coats, because if I take this 2 gallons and I say, well, I think I need to buy 4 gallons of paint, then you're going to be like all kinds of wrong. It's going to be weird. Okay, anyways. Number 2. Consider the floor in a hallway and a living room. How much would it cost to carpet the floor if the carpet costs $3.70 per square foot? So again, we're finding the area. This is not a shape that I'm super familiar with, this like weird L shape. So my strategy is to cut this into shapes that are recognizable. Doesn't really matter which way you decide to cut this. I'm going to make a cut right here. And I'm going to say I have a 12 by 16 rectangle. And then this rectangle over here is going to be a 10 by 3 rectangle. So the area that I'm covering, which should be our first step, is to find this area, is 16 by 20 plus 10 by 3, which comes out to 222 square feet. Now this part's pretty easy. We're going to take that 222 square feet. We're going to multiply it by how much it costs per square foot of carpeting. We got a nice round number here. So 222 times 370. Put it right into your calculator. I get 821.40. So $820.40. Not too crazy for that one, Presley? Did I do 16 times 20? Oh, sorry, 16 times 12. I just wrote it wrong. This is 12. Good. Other questions? Okay. Next one. This is another kind of problem that's going to come up on the quiz. Oops. We're tiling in this one. Tiles are a little bit weird because tiles have a set dimension for each tile, and then we have the dimension of the room that we're tiling. So there's a couple different ways that we could solve how much area we're covering here on the floor. If you like to do stuff with trapezoids, you feel comfortable with the trapezoid formula, split this into 2 pieces with a trapezoid. I am going to choose to do this a little bit differently. And instead of cutting it like here to get a trapezoid, I'm going to say this is one full rectangle, and I'm going to subtract away this part. So my full rectangle here, and again, there's so many different ways that we can do this, so if you don't like this way, that's okay. Just find your area however you like to find area. I'm going to call this rectangle 15 by 20, and I'm going to subtract this little triangle, which it appears to be, this is 5, and this is 12. So I'm going to subtract away 1/2 times 5 times 12. Everybody cool with that? That area comes out to 270. Oops. Cool? Okay, here's the tricky part. That tile is usually not going to be in the same dimension that the floor is. So the floor is measured in feet. The tile is measured in inches. We need to convert to one or the other. So I'm going to take this tile and I'm going to make it, instead of out of inches, I'm going to make this, how many feet is this tile? We have to do the dimensions of the tile before we can find its area. So 8 inches and 8 inches is how much of a foot? I can divide this by 12 inches to get that that's 2/3 of a full foot. the order that I'm doing these steps in here, it matters. We cannot find the area of this tile until we've converted it to feet. I'm going to call this area of the tile. It's a square, so I know that I can do side squared, or 2/3 times 2/3, which is 4/9 feet squared. Now that I know the area of my room and I know the area of a tile, I can now figure out how many tiles am I buying. So I'm going to take 270. I'm going to divide by 4/9. 270 divided by 4/9 gives me 607.5. Again, we're in the same predicament where I can't buy half of a tile, so I'm going to round that up to 608 tiles. And then each tile costs $1.99, so I'm going to multiply by $1.99 to get that this is $12.09.92. Everybody happy with that? We see kind of the process that we're going through here. All right, last one. We're doing two things with this sandbox here. We are going to make a frame for it, a wood frame out of some boards, and then we're going to fill it with sand. So let's start with the frame. The frame goes around the outside. That's perimeter, right? So to find the perimeter of this triangle, I'm going to add up all of the sides. So perimeter equals 16 plus 7.5 plus 12, which gets me 35.5. My unit here is just feet. Now, it says one board is 3 feet long. I need to figure out how many boards am I buying. So I'm going to divide this number by 3, which tells me I need to buy 11.83 boards. Once again, can I buy 0.83 of a board? No, so I'm going to round this number up to 12 boards. And that's the first answer. I don't need to know how much it costs. I just want to know how many I got to buy. Good with the perimeter? We're going to do the same thing for the area. The area of this triangle, 1/2 base times height. My base is 12. The height is 9. Remember, we're looking for whatever is perpendicular to the base. So it's 12 by 9. So this is 1/2, 12 by 9, which gives me 54 square feet. Again, I'm using that number to figure out how many bags of sand I need to buy. It says 1 bag of sand fills 9 square feet. So I'm going to divide this by 9 to get that I need 6 bags. And that came out nice and even, so I don't need to do anything crazy. Any questions on this?